Roy Orbison's voice was legendary, a soaring three-octave range that seemed to come from another world. He stood motionless on stage, dressed in all black sunglasses, hiding his eyes behind the microphone. That still figure with the haunting voice became a symbol of mystery and sorrow. But what most fans don't realize is that the melancholic power in his songs wasn't acting, it was real. Behind the mask and the music lay a life filled with loss, silence, and secrets only now coming fully into focus. Roy Kelton Orbison was born in Vernon, Texas in 1936, into a working-class family riding out the tail end of the Depression. From an early age, he was introspective and shy, teased for his thick glasses and quiet nature. Music became refuge. At 6, he got a guitar from his parents, and by 8, he was performing on local radio. By high school, he had formed the Wink Westerners, a blend of country, gospel, and early pop influences, which helped him step out of his shell and discover his gift. Fans later called him the Caruso of rock and the Big O. His voice was described as the cry of an angel falling backward through an open window, a haunting blend of beauty and grief that cut deep. But that voice was more than talent, it became his shield and soundtrack. There's an online rumor, still unverified, that Orbison underwent experimental sinus surgeries as a teenager that changed his voice permanently. No credible biographies or medical records support this claim. His vocal power came from years of emotional intensity, disciplined breath control, and sheer will, not from surgical alteration. The myth adds drama, but there's no real proof behind it. His breakthrough came after signing with Monument Records in 1959 under producer Fred Foster. Rejecting the rockabilly of Sun Records, he layered operatic vocals with lush strings, minimal movement, and deeply personal lyrics. Hits like Only the Lonely, Crying, and Running Scared reflected raw heartbreak and emotional isolation, crafted, yes, but also deeply felt. Roy married his high school sweetheart, Claudette Frady, in 1957. Despite a 4-year age gap, their connection ran deep. He wrote the song Claudette as a tribute, originally given to the Everly Brothers but later recorded by him. By the early 62nd, they had 3 sons, Roy Dwayne, Anthony King, and Wesley. He loved being a dad, even though his career kept him away much of the time. In June 1966, tragedy struck when Claudette was killed in a motorcycle crash in Gallatin, Tennessee. They had just reconciled after a separation, and in an instant his world cracked open. Then in September 1968, a little over 2 years later, while Orbison was touring in England, a house fire destroyed his Tennessee home and killed his 2 eldest sons, Roy Jr. and Anthony. His youngest son, Wesley, survived only because he was staying with his grandparents. The loss became unbearable twice over, and the grief unimaginable. From the outside, Orbison remained composed, but behind closed doors he retreated. Friends and family described him as emotionally fragile, drifting through life like a ghost. His son, Roy Jr., later said, "When Dad walked into a room, it was like a ghost walked in." He reportedly relied heavily on prescription sleep aids and at times doubted whether he should continue in music at all. There were whispers of suicidal thoughts after everything that had happened, but no medical report or personal letters confirm this, explicitly only anecdotal accounts. Still, the weight that shaped his songs was real and unrelenting. Even while grief nearly broke him, Orbison slowly began rebuilding. In the late 1972, he collapsed from open heart disease. He underwent coronary bypass surgery in Nashville in January 1978, likely saving his life, but returned to touring just weeks later, refusing to slow down despite chest pains and poor health. Though his career in the U.S. felt stalled, abroad he remained respected. Songs like Blue Bayou, covered by Linda Ronstadt, and Pretty Woman, revived by Van Halen, brought renewed attention. In 1980, he won a Grammy for That Lovin' You Feelin' Again, a duet with Emmylou Harris that hinted at reconnection with the joy of music. Orbison's career rebounded spectacularly in the late 82nd. He teamed up with Jeff Lynne, Tom Petty, Bob Dylan, and George Harrison to form the Traveling Wilburys. Their debut album was a commercial hit. At the same time, Mystery Girl, a posthumous album, released shortly after his death, spawned major singles like You Got It, She's a Mystery to Me, and California Blue. Yet beneath the surface of success, he was visibly worn out. Friends noted he now smoked. He was under chronic stress, and his earlier heart condition had not disappeared. He looked strong on camera, but privately he was fraying. On the 6th of December, 1988, Roy Orbison died of a heart attack in Hendersonville, Tennessee, at the age of 52. His passing followed months of chest pain, a life that would look successful from a distance but had eroded him from the inside. The world mourned, a voice lost too soon, while those who knew him understood the heartbreak behind the legend. Since his death, his family, especially his wife Barbara and sons Alex and Wesley, have worked to preserve his legacy. In 2014, they released a deluxe version of Mystery Girl with a haunting demo titled The Way Is Love, completed decades after his death. It served as a tribute to both his artistry and his humanity. Orbison's life has since become fertile soil for speculation, dramatization, and myth. Some focus on rumors of voice-changing surgeries. Others romanticize him as the ultimate tortured artist. But the truth is far more nuanced and far more human. There was no single secret that created Roy Orbison's sorrowful aura, no surgery, no conspiracy. Instead, there was a man born into hardship, driven by grief, shaped by immense loss, and determined to keep singing anyway. His songs weren't invented heartbreak. They were echoes of wounds that never healed. Roy Orbison still matters because he taught us how to feel beauty in suffering. He turned grief into art, not as vengeance or shock value, but as deeply personal expression. Decades after his death, songs like Only the Lonely, Crying, and Handle with Care still cut through the noise, reminding listeners that some feelings are too deep for words but not too deep for music. Roy Orbison's life wasn't a single solved mystery, it was a complex tapestry of pain, passion, and perseverance. The haunting voice we all know was not a freak accident of surgery, but a soul engraved by hardship. The man behind the sunglasses wasn't just the tragic legend fans imagined. He was the wounded artist whose tears formed melodies that still whisper through decades. So if you ever feel a chill listening to In Dreams or a tear with Only the Lonely, remember, this wasn't performance. It was confession. His legacy is not just in the notes he sang, but in the truths he dared to transform into song even while broken inside. And that is the real mystery behind Roy Orbison and the one truth that endures.